Okay, we are live streaming on YouTube now. You can see the link. I think everyone can see the link. So if people who are not able to join, you can feel free to share the YouTube stream link with them. Please don't share the. Perfect. Okay, let's hit record and get started. We are at 12:05 anyway, so no point in waiting any longer. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Good to have you on a Wednesday morning. Well, we're just hitting afternoon. We have just hit the afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. 190 of us already. And I'm sure by the time we get into the conversation, we will have hit 250 easily. Thank you so much, Karthik and Nikunj, for joining us, for agreeing to do this. I am super, super excited for the conversation already. And like I've been saying on LinkedIn, on Twitter for a very, very long time now, even as we do this introduction, I can see more people are joining. I think we should be hitting 200 anytime now. Great. So the topic of the day is employer branding. I think a very, very pertinent and important topic, especially in 2022, especially given what has happened in the past 24 months. I don't know, like 12 months, 24 months, one with the context of the pandemic, of course, but more importantly, also with the context of the immense amount of funding that has come into the ecosystem, which has, and of course, we will get into this in detail, but which has made salary sort of table stakes, at least for unicorn. And even unicorns are, struggling to retain employees, right? And so with that context, we will get into the conversation. Let me first introduce our panelists, Karthik, who is the CEO, founder of Springworks, and Nikunj, who is the co-founder, CEO of CutShort. Thank you so much. Nikunj, do you want to give us a brief 1-minute introduction?
Oh, yeah. I'm Nikunj. Glad to be here. For those of you who don't know about CutShort, we started in 2015, around 6-7 years ago. We have bootstrapped. We created a marketplace, and today, and on a lot of parameters, we are the #1 platform for tech hiring in India. We are different in a way that we try to solve the problem from the marketplace perspective, so that you get the right candidate supply, which matches your jobs, who are looking out, who are top quality, who are not really out there on other portals and stuff. But then we also differentiate and really care a lot about how do you actually find the top ones and how do you actually get the conversions. It's not just about finding the resumes and downloading the resumes for us. And through this kind of initiative that Abhash had started, and we also do our own webinars on these topics to make sure that people understand the hiring process. We understand how we are proceeding in the future, how the whole environment is changing, and how can we adapt so that the tools don't matter, your process actually matters, and your thinking actually matters more. So we also take care of that on the platform. So that was a brief about CutShort. We have around 20,000 plus companies who have signed up. We have around 2 million plus users who have signed up. So yeah, I think it's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks a lot, Nikunj. That is one of the reasons why we, reached out to you, because you, just like us, are also bootstrapped. And I think, of course, it's a challenge, like I said, for unicorn companies, but more so for bootstrapped companies like us, who don't, really have sort of money to throw or, toys to throw at, talent. So we need to work double hard on the employer branding, which brings me to Karthik. Karthik, you want to introduce yourself as well as Springworks, I guess?
Hi everyone. This is Karthik. I'm the founder of Springworks. We started in 2014. Been around, I guess, 8 years at this point. Full stack HR, right from background verification to employee engagement. And we are revenue funded as well. So unlike VC funded companies or unicorns who kind of generally try to kind of attract talent on salaries and perks and whatnot, we take the other way around, which is employer branding, right? How can we be employee first? How can we treat employees as our customers and do it as a product problem, right? And then focus on employer branding. And this has immense benefits. We're one of the highest rated companies on Glassdoor, 225 reviews, 4.8, and then we get around 100 to 150 applicants organically every single day, right? Just through our social channels, right? So employer branding kind of gives you, it takes a while, but it gives you kind of long-term benefits.
Fantastic, fantastic. We will get the conversation started. Couple of hygiene things again. This is being recorded. Obviously, every attendee will get a recording of this conversation, of this webinar. This is being live streamed on YouTube. Feel free to share the YouTube link, which you should be able to see on your screen with your friends, colleagues inside your workplace. Use the chat for your questions. Our colleagues, Shweta, Neha, and Neeraj from Springworks and Cutshort respectively will be picking up those questions and we will take them at the end. Cool. With those things in mind, and please keep yourself on mute at all times. We have too many people now. How many people? Oh, wow. We have reached 227. Great. Fantastic to see that. Yeah, let's get into the conversation now. Quickly, I think, obviously, because of the fact that, these people have registered and are attending for a webinar on employer branding, I think they understand the value of why employer branding. But just to set some context again, why do you think employer branding is much, much more important in today's context, right? Of course, it has always been something that companies have looked at. But at this point, the number of job role openings that I see across, bigger unicorns, especially bigger unicorns, I think they have realized now, like I mentioned, right? Like salaries, everyone is sort of gotten at the same baseline. We're talking about 90, 100 unicorns now. So culture, employer branding, that has become the most important thing. So yeah, just to start off, Nikunj, your take on this.
So yeah, I think as you mentioned, there are a lot of reasons for this, right? One of the reasons, of course, is the demand supply gap. There is so much demand right now in the market that there are more companies which are trying to woo the same set of candidates. So of course, how do you differentiate? That has been one problem or one trend or one reason for that. Second is the globalization of talent, right? So now you're seeing competition not from your local companies, and it used to be very local market, right? 2 years ago, Bangalore companies would hire only in Bangalore, Pune will only hire in Pune. And now we are seeing that across pan India, companies in Ahmedabad hiring people in Bangalore. So within India itself, it has expanded, and outside India also, and both ways, right? Companies hiring talent outside India from India, and companies outside India hiring talent in India, right? That also is kind of growing. So the market has really become more distributed, more democratized, right? So in this kind of market, there will be more options for every candidate, which did not really happen before. So there's more talent demand, right? So that is why these two trends kind of point towards higher demand. And third thing I think is also the shift in the employee behavior as well. Now people also don't want to just work for any other company. Work is very meaningful for them in a lot of ways. They want to decide, because every company is offering something which is unique, but what they want to really work on is something where they can find a good alignment with what they want to do, which values they kind of uphold, and all of those things, right? So those generation changes also have happened, and Gen Z, or Zoomers as we call them, right, they're very particular about that specific part as well. So now they're not going to choose a company which is just based on established or brand or based on salary, right? They're going to look at a lot of other factors as well. And that's why I think it has led. Now there was an option of you or a company not doing employer branding before in earlier market, but now there's no option. You have to differentiate, and if you don't differentiate, if you don't stand out, then you don't really have any say on the talent that you're going to bring in. So that's why I think it has become very important today, and it's going to be more important in future as well, because the whole trend is going to accelerate. It's not like it's like a something which is going to recede or something like that.
Yeah, just crazy how particular companies have gotten about it, and rightly so. I think it's very, like, even if you think of employer branding from a marketing perspective, at least if you go the other way around, it is leading to change in policies and such at the company level as well. Karthik, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think Nikunj kind of said this state well. So like in the supply demand is one of the biggest reasons, right? So the way too many jobs for the same number of people, for the same number of qualified people, I guess. And how do you so what happens right now when you're applying for a company, you're always looking them up on Glassdoor, you're always looking them up on Twitter, LinkedIn, right? It's like when you go to a restaurant, you're never blindly going there, right? Now that era has gone away, right? You're always looking them up on Zomato, checking their reviews, right? It's the same thing here. Employee branding has almost become the basic hygiene. Like if you don't have it, if you're not online, if you don't have a Glassdoor profile, if you don't have reviews, then it's almost like you'll be penalized, for not having any of that, right? So it has become basic hygiene, and for candidates to increasingly, check, okay, this is the type of company I want to work at. Salary is okay, but these are other things I value. This is why my personal life matters, work life matters. This is the culture of the company. This is the autonomy we'll have in this company, things like that. And we have seen some of these crazy stories with Bharat Pay and whatnot have also come up, where they have some companies have negatively used it, and candidates are increasingly becoming very kind of I guess stringent on the type of company they want to work on, right? So they have a high bar, right? And which is not just money, it's beyond money, right? So almost basic hygiene at this point.
Yeah, totally get it. And we have already mentioned the the elephant in the room, I guess. But yeah, I mean, the other thing is, of course, now that we have established employer branding is very, very important. What people struggle with, or at least companies which are quite young may not have the same money muscle as some of the bigger unicorns that we are talking about, is they don't have enough examples, right? When you think of employer branding, you think of the bigger companies, like, I mean, not bigger startups, even like not unicorns. I'm talking about the likes of Amazon, Facebook, Google, and such. Those are the ones that come to mind. You'll look for examples. Those are the examples that you get. So I think it's very important to even start with that context that, companies like Cutshort, Springworks, and the likes are also able to do this, and not necessarily with just money, right? Like there are other ways to do it as well, to showcase their culture, etc. And yeah, so if you can give some examples, Nikunj, from what you do at Cutshort, what you have seen other companies of the likes do, so that we can get some actionable tips for the participants.
Yes, I think example of employer branding, when we think about it, right? Most of us think about Google, Amazon, because they have the money, and we think they can do employer branding because they can spend on it. But I think there are a lot of examples of smaller companies also which have done that very well, and they don't really have to do it at a very gigantic level, at a global level, right? They can do in a very smaller pockets where it really matters to them. So Cutshort, of course, does that, but I would rather take example of, let's say, we all have heard about Lizzat Papad, right? Is a Mahila Grah Udyog, something, right? And it's a women-driven organization. And if you remember the ads that we used to see earlier, now they used to come on TV, but they started in 1959. That company started in 1959, and with 8 rupees as the capital, which they began with, right? And the entire imagery that we remember of that company is that some ordinary women, right, walking out of their houses, going to a factory, getting the dough, and then actually rolling the papad every day, and then their family around them is respecting them, and they have earned the respect because of the livelihood that they are earning now. So the entire imagery is now based on women empowerment. It's based on you are uplifting people, giving them livelihoods, and also giving women respect in their household, right? And that's the imagery that works, and that imagery is employer branding for Lizzat Papad. There have been case studies on that. And once you have it, your media and other people will propagate it, right? How powerful your story is. You don't really need to spend a lot of money. Now, for example, at a bootstrap company example you took, right? We all are bootstrapped. Now, how do we survive? We don't survive based on huge marketing budgets. We survive and thrive because our story is strong, our product is strong, and our fans, our customers, they believe in a story and they propagate it. We don't have to really push it. So I think similar to that, if your brand story is very good, if it's authentic, it's honest, it really will propagate by itself. So I think to think that employer branding as a concept can be used only by huge companies with huge budgets, I think it's wrong. It's something which you can control. You just need to do the homework, right? And I think we'll talk about it more in this webinar. But yeah, that would be my example, that how you can think about it at a very grassroots level.
Very interesting that you picked up Lizzat Papad as the example. Like you don't think about that immediately. That doesn't come to mind. But I guess, very important lessons to be taken from there. Yeah, great example. Karthik, of course, we have done a bunch of stuff, so I will let you take it up with some examples of how we do it at Springworks.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and just want to emphasize the point that Nikunj also mentioned, like you don't need any money for employer branding, right? It just does not cost anything. Employer branding is not perks. Employer branding is not or a higher salary. It's not 4-day work week. It's not fancy offices. It's not free food. It's none of that stuff, right? It's just being employee first, right? So what do people really care about, right? And you kind of have to ask that question yourself almost every 3 months, right when you're 10 employees, then 25, 50, 100, and the answer will keep changing. At 10 you probably are reaching out to your own network. At 25 you're reaching out to employees as in friends of your employees, and 50 it goes beyond. You have to have basic hygiene setup. 100 kind of even goes beyond to job boards and things like that. So you have to kind of keep asking that question. So it has always has to come from the employees, similar to how you run marketing for your product, right? You treat customers with that much respect. You do a product market fit. You kind of figure out what they want. You constantly ask for feedback. You're like, okay, if you're building this new feature, would you like to use? Same thing on the employee side as well. For one example is we recently did a salary advance survey. A lot of folks are talking about it on Twitter and on social media, whatnot. That getting the salary on the first of the month is actually better than the last day of the month, right? So he's like, okay, let's do it. It's a bunch of work for finance and HR. They will hate us for doing this, but let's try it out, right? So we sent a pulse to everyone in the org, and guess what, like majority of them said it doesn't matter, let's not do it. It's not actually going to help us. First month you will see feel nice, but from the next month it's the same thing. Instead of getting this on 30th, you're actually getting on first, right? So actually it does not really mean anything. It may be just like a small slight marketing gimmick, but it's not useful for the employees. On the other side, right, if you say, okay, what is the one thing which is hampering your productivity right now? I think the answer for all remote hybrid companies will be meetings, right? They spend 4 to 6 hours in meetings. How can you reduce? So it's not an easy problem, but you can work towards reducing it, right? Have agendas and things like that. We can get into that later. So small things, doing surveys, doing pulse feedback sessions, anonymous sessions, and kind of going from there. Basic hygiene obviously needs to be set up, something like Glassdoor. Every single person who joins the company asks for a review after week 1, month 1. Every single person who leaves the company, right? People who are leaving are actually the best employee evangelists, right? Ask them for a review on LinkedIn, ask them for a review on Glassdoor. And if they can say something positive after they've left the company, which when they have nothing to lose, right? If they have said something positive at that point, then your kind of game is on, right? They will leave, that's fine. For higher salary, other reasons, but if they have said something positive, that is the best possible signal you can send to a candidate, and they will look at that and say, oh yeah, I want to apply this company.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so meanwhile, we are also running some polls. You must have seen the first poll answer is out. Thoughts and opinions that one has about your product, services, leaders, history. That is more to do with your company brand, product brand. Thoughts and opinions that live in the minds and hearts of your former, current, and future employees. That is more of the employer branding. So, but we will run a bunch of these polls throughout. Good examples, good thoughts, first thoughts on how to do employer brand. Some examples on the employer branding as bootstrapped companies, as revenue funded companies. But as you start scaling, you need talent to come in, like the best of the best talent. They don't care whether you're bootstrapped, funded, whatever, right? And at that point, salary, the salaries have shot up. Let's be let's take that out of the equation. Salaries have shot up in the past 1.5 years. You can't really compete with the bigger companies who will literally throw money at you. You see Twitter people, CXOs from these bigger unicorn companies, not even unicorns, say someone who has raised $50 million, they share screenshots, current salary 21, we are offering 48 lakhs. How do you compete with that, right? Like, do you think it's even possible to compete with that, or should you live with the fact that, there are some people who will go for salaries, and you sort of attract your own, group of talent who wants to work with you? How do you go about thinking about it? What is your framework that you use, Nikunj?
Yeah, so can you just enable the screen sharing in the meantime? I just actually had written down something for this,
Sure. Let me do that.
which will be apt for this actually. Yeah.
Yes, I have.
You're all prepared with a deck.
No, actually, I just have the habit of jotting down my thoughts, right? So I just have this whole, and I was watching the chat section as well. The people who are talking about salary as the major pain point right now in the market, right? And somebody in the chat section also was mentioning that if salary had been the only reason people joined, then people would not have joined so many other companies, right? So basically, how do you think about this whole salary versus this thing, right? So when you think about, I tend to think, because I come from marketing background, so I tend to think about it as a very much similar to the way the concept works in a market like consumer market. So let's say you are in a market for phones, and you have a value prop for every phone, right? So you have something, what you will get from this phone as a customer. It could be variety of things. It could be emotional value. It could be functional value. It could be something else. And then you pay a price for it, right? So there is an exchange of value which you do there when you buy a phone. And similar to that, when you are uh, thinking about employer branding, employee is thinking what value prop I'm getting from this company, what is the benefit I'm getting, and what is the comp I get, right? So it's a reverse situation, but as a company, there's very similar concepts. Now, as a similarity, and in the consumer market, when you're buying a phone, the higher the value prop, the higher price you can pay because you're getting more value out of it. When the employee is thinking the same thing, the employee thinks that, okay, if I'm getting the higher value proposition, then I can do with less salary, right? So it's not like always everybody's trying to, whenever you're buying iPhone, you're not trying to buy the cheapest phone. There are people who will buy iPhone, there are people who will buy OnePlus, and everybody plays in the same market. It's a big market of phones, and there are different customers who buy it for different reasons, and everyone pays a different price for it. Similar to that, there are lots of companies out there. There are lots of value propositions they offer. Now, which employee will take, or which person or which professional will take which company offer, it depends on the value proposition versus the price or the comp they're going to get, right? And one important difference between these two is actually more pronounced in case of employer branding, which is when I'm buying an iPhone, or when I'm buying a phone, I can live with a bad purchase. I can reverse it immediately, right? Next day I can go and return it, or maybe 6 months down the line I can buy it again, and I can keep on buying every time, every 3 months. But that's not the same with a job decision. When I'm joining a company, I cannot keep on changing that. It's not so easily reversible. So there are more reasons why people would actually look at value propositions more in an employer kind of a job market rather than in a customer or when they're buying a product market, right? So I think it's important to understand this idea. And now coming to the point that will salaries matter, or do salaries only matter, right? You get the answer here that if you have a very high value prop as a brand, right? When you are Apple, you can charge higher prices. When you are really strong employer brand, you have more leverage in terms of the compensation that you can offer, and you can get away from it. And of course, if you don't have differentiation there, in terms of brand, then the only thing you are doing is commodity, right? So you're actually competing on price. When you don't have branding power in the market, you sell the product at the cheapest price. When you don't have differentiation in the employees and employer market, then you pay the highest salary and try to get more people at the highest salary. So it's very similar in my mind from that perspective.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, quick slides as well. I think that helped as well. Karthik, your take on this?
Yeah, so I think one key thing is to understand is like employer branding is not going to fix your, if you're underpaying by 50, 60, 80%, right? Like salary is important for a lot of, people. And I think you have to kind of segment the folks, right? So people are, who are in the age generally 20 to 30 will be like, okay, salary is important. They are in that kind of, zone of life, and they're in that phase where, like they would probably not care so much about work life and the quality of work and the culture and whatnot, and still in a growth phase. So it depends from person to person, but generally anywhere from say 10 to 30 to 40 lakhs, right? And beyond that, people like, okay, yes, should I, is it fine? Can I take a 5 lakh, 10 lakh, decrease because I would want to focus on my work-life balance. I don't want to work, 18 hours a day. I want to work in a company which is async first. I want to work in a company where, my ideas are respected. They're at least heard. The founders are taking the time to kind of respond to, feedback anonymously, things like that, right? So I think there it kind of starts mattering. So like anything, this is again a product problem, right? So you figure out what is your ideal customer, who's your ideal employee, and you start branding towards them, right? If you think your ideal employee is someone around the age of 30 35 who's remote, distributed, then yeah, all of these things matter. If it's someone who's kind of coming in as a fresher, then you kind of attract that type of crowd, right? Someone who's coming straight from out of college, the only thing that really matters to them is growth. How quickly can I use this as a launch pad? Can I spend a year, 2 years, 3 years, and get to my next milestone from here, right? Which can be whatever, Facebook, Google, things like that as well. So it really depends on the segment you are attracting, and you have to kind of do different kind of branding for each segment, and have employer stories and things which matter to them. Like job description should also mention those things. But yes, I think to kind of answer that question, salary is a big thing, right? Is it, for a lot of people, if they get a 30-50% jump, especially if it's like double digit, as in upwards of 5 lakhs, then they would probably do that for a while. And then once they kind of reach a state where their basic needs are met, they have whatever savings of 12 to 18 months, that's when they start focusing on, I want to work on this type of company, right? This is, these are the people I want to work with. This is the type of manager I want to work with, right? This is the problem I would like to solve. And, 3, 4 lakhs, 5 lakhs is not going to incrementally change my life at this point, but it's actually the, quality of work which matters a lot, right? And quality of work is directly derived from your employer branding.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And I mean, it's fair to be honest about it, right? Like maybe you will lose some good talent on salary itself, but you live with that. I think once you have, radical differentiation is one of the moats that you can create for your employer branding. And that essentially radical differentiation means you're not everything for everyone, right? Just like, both Nikunj and Karthik mentioned, if you think about it from a product problem, right? Like there are thousands of products in the market. So how do you even differentiate, right? Like by building for a particular niche, so that you're not everything for everyone. And that is one I think easy way to go about it at this point, is how the way you work can become your radical differentiation. Unlike say pre-pandemic, where it had to be culture and all of those sorts of things, which still is important, but just how you work, whether it is can you attract, like very simple example for that is there are people who do want to work from an office. Let's be honest. Like, I mean, we are a fully distributed company, but we do come across people who say, oh, you are a remote company, we don't want to work at a remote company. That is perfectly fine, which means you have created your own niche, which might have fewer number of people, but at least their want to work with your company is sort of much strong. One quick announcement. I see on my handle already that people are tweeting about this. Mayank is, at least I can see him having tapped me. Please do share your learnings on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and after the session we will of course look at that, and we have some surprise gifts for people who we pick up, right? Like people who do enough of this. Nikunj has also agreed to do a surprise gift for those participants. Karthik has also agreed to do that. We will reach out to you later. We will keep the gift as a surprise for now. But yeah, do feel free to tag us. Nikunj is at Nikunj_speaks. Karthik is at KAR2905. Yeah, you don't have to tag me. Springworks is at SpringRollInc, and Cutshort is at CutShortHQ. So feel free to tag us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and yeah, share your learnings. Make people who are not part of this feel that they are missing out. We are at 250 participants, by the way. Before we move into the next section, which is what are the first few things that you can do to get your employer branding exercise started? Like, we have all understood the importance of employer branding. We have all understood that, there is a way for even bootstrapped companies who might not be able to, compete on salaries. They can also do a bunch of things. We have seen, we have heard a couple of examples, but now coming to the action part of it, right? Like, what are the first few things that people in the HR, people ops team, founding team, whoever is responsible, give depending on the stage of the company, how can they get started? Nikunj.
Yeah, I think the first thing is I see a lot of like typical reaction that I see when people look at employer branding is now we have to do it, right? It's something we are being forced to do it because we have to compete on something, so we have to do it, right? So if you become more problem centric and you think you are being forced to do it, you will not be able to really do it. You have to understand the importance of it. It is not just to attract talent. If you think it is just about attracting talent, that you will hire more people, they will join, your dropout or your joining ratio will be increase. That's a one very siloed view of employer branding. Employer branding, if you want to do it right, you also have to look at your existing employees and you have to look at the mission that you have in place. So first of all, I would say first thing is where are you going, right? What exactly is the mission of the company? What kind of people you really need? And I see a lot of people going wrong there itself. They just think they look around and they have this previous baggage, right? So let's say founders come from an enterprise company, and the moment they start any other company, maybe it's a consumer D2C company, they think about the same kind of people we want to hire. And then they look around and look at other companies, what is Swiggy hiring, what is Zomato hiring. They try to copy the same companies, companies with the same kind of people. So first of all, you need to understand what kind of product you're making, what is the service, whatever you're making, what are you making, what is the mission, and to make it happen, what kind of people you need. That's the first important thing you have to do. And you have to believe that you have to do it not only for attracting talent, but also to actually make the mission come true. Otherwise, if you don't have the people and they don't stick around, you're not going to be also enabling them in the future when they join. So you have to really understand the kind of people you want to attract. Second part is, once you know that these are the people you want to attract, look inside and see who are the people like that today you have in the company, right? So you, out of let's say 50 people, 15 or 10 people are really the people that you think are the ideal hires. And these are the people who work here, not because of salary. Again, if your salary is the reason they're working, then that's not the right reason. Look at those people and figure out why these people are working here and why they are still going strong 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and what really makes them stay and stay engaged, right? So understand that part first. Then you look at outside world and try to see, okay, who are the people like this that we can hire more, and then you talk to them, you try to understand what are their options, what is their life life stage right now. As Karthik said, are they young people who are looking for the first job, and hence their requirement will be different as compared to someone with 80 or 10 year experience, where their requirement might be different. The way they will decide will be different, and the kind of problems they want to work is different. So try to understand that. That's basically the research part, where you're trying to just understand what kind of people you want and what is the value prop you want to create for them. And then once you have the value prop, I think a lot of people get lost. Again, the second point, which is, how do I get the budget for it, right? I'm only one recruiter in the team. I don't have the budget for it. My founder does not agree to it, or founder says, okay, go ahead and do it, but I'm not a content writer. How do I do it? I don't have a social media guy who can actually do it. So people get lost in the implementation and they try to make it very fancy, because they look around and they see every company is doing a Twitter campaign, they're doing creatives, they're doing video campaigns. Those are costly and more established ways of doing it. But I would say the very easy, very simplistic way is to just write out one blog piece, which just captures working at your company, why you should care, and just talk to that audience about what value props you already have discussed. So like in case of Springworks, Karthik was saying that you look at some things that people are looking for, and you talk about that specific thing, that why, and you only talk to them. Right, as you said, Abash also said about remote versus office. You talk to remote people because remote is where you're going, and that's the kind of people you want to attract. So then you talk about work-life balance, work from anywhere, and that is your basic idea of value proposition that you're offering. And once you have done these two parts, you have defined the value proposition and you have communicated it in some way, then you just have to make sure that you are validating it and re-energizing it. And how do you do that, right? I can say that my company is the best company, we offer all these things, but the best proof is going to be coming from the people who are actually part of the company and who the people who have interacted with us. So try to do that in a way that people can authentically talk about your brand and about your company, and they can share their value propositions and tell them that, okay, these are three value propositions that we have discussed. In my case, for example, it could be ownership to do whatever you want, thinking and really being the best in the business, and we want to only talk about that. That is the value prop we offer at Cut Short. So we would rather not have our employees share pictures from Goa trip, share pictures about having beer together. Those are all cool things, but we would rather have them share or encourage them to share things with which they learned today, right? Anything that they learned, anything that they got to do which they never got to do before. And those are the things we would like to propagate and communicate, right? I think these are two or three things. Look at the mission uniquely at your company, don't copy other companies. Second, figure out what value prop you want to create. And third, at the very basic minimum, create a blog post somewhere where you can write and talk to this audience one to one, from your founder, from your team, and then use this everywhere. Use the same thing everywhere, in your job post, in your pitches, wherever you're going to use it. Just talk about this and have and enable the other people talk about it, to lend credence to it. And that's how you will start the ball rolling.
Yeah, fantastic. I think you nailed it with value proposition. Just day before yesterday, I was doing a podcast with the HR head of Zeta Suite, right? And she kept mentioning EVP, and at one point I asked her, "What is EVP? I don't know what EVP is." And then she said, "Employee value proposition," right? And then it hit me right away that what I call radical differentiation is employee value proposition. And both are one and the same thing. Yeah, you can't be everything for everyone. That is what it boils down to. Karthik, your some examples, some action items that people can get started off with if they are just starting off their employer branding exercise.
Sure, sure. So I think one of the first ones is basic hygiene, which is Glassdoor has to be there. Have all your jobs up, have basic information up. Invite all the existing employees to give you a review. Invite all the candidates who are actually interviewing with you, to kind of review. So this is something very few companies in India are going to do this. Generally, companies will ask employees to do it, but not candidates. Glassdoor has a an option for candidates to review the interview process, and that kind of puts you on front, and then a lot of candidates are coming to Glassdoor to look for jobs, and then your job posting automatically comes to them organically, right? So that is a big thing which should be done. Then on the exit, when employees leave, ask them for a review on Glassdoor, LinkedIn, whatnot. I think referrals, everyone talks about that. And then one other, hack which we have done very well is, and does not cost any money, does not actually take a lot of time as well, which is just employee stories, right? Very authentic stories of, what, where people are from, what background have they come from, education, previous employment, what do they do now, how does their day-to-day look like here. And that is something you can post on your blog, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever, right? And this allows anyone who's coming into the company to see, actually listen from that person they are going to be working with. This is how the day-to-day looks like. So we used to call this a day in the life of Abhaj, for example, right? And that is a nice way to kind of list, okay, this is how the day starts, this are all the meetings, this is how the teams work and stuff like that. So you're making it very transparent, does not require any creatives, no graphics, so basic hygiene is enough, right? And just be authentic, right? I think someone mentioned in the chat as well, like you cannot fake it, right? And please don't fake it, please don't try to fake it as well, because if you fake it, you will actually end up hurting more. So just be very authentic. Small things like do an anonymous survey with your employees, the feedback, the responses you get, use that for your employer branding. Ask okay, what are the current challenges, where are people coming from, right? So all these small things have a long impact, right? And ask for, I think referrals is something everyone kind of does, but ask people to proactively post on LinkedIn, okay, this is this was my first month, right? This was what are all the things I did in my first month, first week. This is what I do regularly. And you can kind of have the founder do these interviews. You as the HR can do this. Will not take more than an hour to do an interview and write up, the blog post, and then you kind of get a lot of, social credibility, because it's when the blog is published, the employee is going to take it and post it in all their, social media platforms, right? They'll send it to their family, they'll send it to their friends, and that will, give you organic applicants as well, right? So it's kind of all of these small things you do. It takes a while. It's like SEO, right? For the first 3 months, you'll probably see no impact, but after that, it, keeps on going. And once the engine is up, right, there's no stopping it, right? You just have to, continuously, put fuel in it, but you have to you'll have to kind of wait for a while to see the impact. And as you said, like as I said earlier, we have around 200 applicants, kind of come in organically every single day, right? And this is, and we don't even do any paid postings anywhere, right? Like literally, it's Glassdoor is, the one which kind of gives us the majority, kind of, applicants, right? And when people go there, they will search for, say, for example, cred, and then Glassdoor will say, why don't you look at other top-rated companies in India? Perfect, right? Great, way. You don't need 500 employees for that. You can start as small as 10, 15, 20, doesn't really, matter, because you have to start somewhere, and slowly, go from there. Interviews. So also from the candidates who have not yet joined, they may decide to join some other company for higher salary, maybe, better, more well-suited work, things like that. But they can always give you, a review on your interview process.
Great. Yes, and I think I would like to add here as well. This is something that specifically we have been able to do at Springworks. Is employee advocacy is not something that will start happening. You started today. 10 days from now, everyone starts posting on their LinkedIn or Twitter. That is a long-term thing with huge ROI, which is true for any brand marketing, exercise. So some of the things that you can get started off with is you have to give, at least this is what we have done at Springworks. I'm not trying to be prescriptive. This has worked for us. You have to give people explicit permission to build their personal brands on company time. If you are getting the benefit out of someone posting about, how the work culture is good, or, something about the company, that's extra work, right? Why should your employees be using their personal time to do this? Give them explicit permission that this is part of your job, as in if they want to. I'm not asking you to force everyone to do it. That is of course not where we want to go to, but you can basically give them sort of an extra credit if someone is building their personal brand, because by association, as a byproduct, your employer brand and in many cases your company product brand is also being built every time someone from your company, one of your employees, posts about it as anything on Twitter or LinkedIn, right? The next important thing is there has to be a why. Like people should understand why they are at all doing this, right? Like building your personal brand that helps employer brand is not an easy task, right? Like it doesn't, first of all, it doesn't come naturally to everyone, right? So if you give them the why of why they should be building their own personal brand and how that helps the company, right? Like if you give them the why, then it will sort of become very easy for them. And this is the truth with anything, right? Like people only do something when they see there is something in it for them. Right. So you have to give them the why very, very importantly. So we also tell people that, every time you post, it increases leads in our pipeline, because, someone might be, scrolling the feed and they see you've spoken about one of our good experiences is one of our products. They also, start trying out the product, or they might, just reach out to the person itself, himself or herself. And then you have created also a sense of belonging. So if, you have a 60% team, for example, and only 2 or 3 people are posting on LinkedIn or Twitter, then they become the outliers, right? Like, ye aadmi to din bhar LinkedIn, Twitter pe rehta hai, right? That they become the outlier, they, feel alienated and all of that. But if everyone is doing it, and I'm not saying all 60 people, if 20, 25 people start doing it, then you are not the outlier, that becomes the norm, right? So we have sort of created channels where, people share when they post about something on Twitter or LinkedIn, and everyone comes in and supports it, right? Like with a like, comment, whatever it is. So yeah, this is something that I, quickly wanted to mention as well.
Yeah, and one quick thing. So just one, example I'd like to mention. So, a lot of people say, kind of send a message to this, employee, can you give us a review on Glassdoor? And I think this is kind of the generic message even we used to send, right? So can you give us a review on Glassdoor? This is the link to give the review, right? I think then that is like, okay, just do this for us, something like that, right? That does not really explain the why. And if you add like literally 4 words, right, which is like helps us hire more people like you, or helps us, hire your friends, helps us hire, people like you, that's enough, right? That will literally, I'm telling you, it will have a big impact. It will have a delta impact on the number of reviews you get, because you're explaining the why. You're just not telling people to do. No one wants to be forced. No one wants to be asked to do things they don't want to, right? So you have to kind of explain why this is really useful, for not just for the company but also for them, right? Because if the company is able to hire more people like them, they're also more successful, they'll be happier. Just a small difference kind of helps get more reviews. And you do this with every single thing you do on the employer branding.
Great. We will do 2 more questions and then we will go into the question answer session. A couple of things again, we are going to be sharing this recording. I see a couple of people asking in the chat, it will be great to have this recording. Of course, at the beginning we announced this, but maybe some people joined later. We will be sharing this recording with everyone, irrespective of whether you are attending this live or people who registered but couldn't attend live for whatever reason. We are doing a bunch of tweets. Of course, Drishti is sharing this on chat. Feel free to, engage with it. There is a surprise gift for people who post on Twitter and LinkedIn about these learnings. Before we move into the next theme or question, and very important question, I think, Nikunj, who owns employer branding within the company? Very difficult question. I guess at 10 people, of course. Founder is the one owning it, but let's talk about stages like 50, 200, maybe 500. Who do you think should own it, in your opinion? And how does one go about taking ownership for it?
So I think my short answer is that everyone should be a stakeholder, because it affects everyone, right? If as a team member, I'm not getting the right kind of people in my team, my team is not going to be able to perform. And the reason why I joined this company, that reason will never become the end goal, or it will never materialize, right? My mission of the company will fail. So first of all, everybody should care about it. It's not a duty of a founder or a management person or a HR person who just wants to hire, and the HR person or recruiter has a problem right now that they are sending the offers, as I said earlier, and they're not getting accepted. And that's a pain point they have, and they come to the team saying, this is a pain point I want to solve. But that's not the right reason why you should solve it. And hence, I would say a recruitment or HR team, since they understand the employees very well, right? It really is also inside out as well, outside in. They have to understand the market as well, and they also have to understand the employees as well. And the best team which understands that is the HR team. So I would say HR team and recruitment team actually is the right custodian for this function, but they really need support from everyone. And their failure to create employer brand is everyone's failure as a company, and it will soon become a failure of the company, because if you're not able to get the right people in the team, you're not going to be able to make the right product or right service, whatever you're making. So it's very important, I think, from that perspective, to have the stakeholding very clearly defined, that everyone should care about it. If the only HR or recruiter is caring about it, then that's not the right approach. So I would say, irrespective of the size of the company, if the HR function is being done by the founder himself early stage, then yeah, founder is the custodian. But then I think it will soon become an HR and recruiter's responsibility.
True. Karthik, in your case, of course, you leverage a lot of your LinkedIn and Twitter, but of course you don't own this, right? Like who should own it? Who owns it in Swingworks? If you can tell, that will be great for the attendees.
Yeah, I think it needs to start from the founder. If you have the CEO, the founder, kind of, understanding the why, that's important, as kind of Nikunj mentioned. If the stakeholders are kind of on board, then I think it makes a lot more sense, and it's a lot easier for anyone to take it from there, right? For our case, generally, it starts from the people ops team. and we kind of sometimes get marketing support, so marketing team is kind of there to help, but most of the times it's actually very genuine, authentic, like literally screenshots of what we send to our employees are posted on LinkedIn, right? So it does not really require a fancy graphic designer or a creator or a video or any of that stuff, right? You can take a screenshot of whatever, a survey or message you sent, review you've gotten, and kind of post it, right? And like so it can should be ideally run by the people ops team, either the recruiter, the HR, with kind of the buy-in of the founder or the CEO. That's the best way to do it, and you keep explaining to employees, right? Everyone needs to be a part of this, right? Every review you get on Glassdoor, post it back on your Slack, right? So everyone knows, okay, we just got a new review. They will say, the people who have not yet reviewed will now be convinced to review, right? They'll be like, oh yeah, someone else reviewed in this org, let me go, also do it. It will help all of us, right? Small things like that. So it needs to start from the HR people team, but obviously with the buy-in from the founder and the CEO.
Great. 5 more minutes, one last question, and then we of course take the multiple number of questions it's on that I have noted down that we will take up. Let's do what not to do when it comes to employer branding. What is it that you should not be doing? And we have already mentioned one example of what not to do at the very beginning. I did a nice podcast with Aditya Venkateshan as well, ex-Gojek, now with Meesho. By the way, Meesho, a good example of how talent has forced them to change the narrative, right? Like the founder till last year was saying work from home is the enemy of creativity. And they just, a month back, they went fully remote. Now, of course, I'm not getting into the debate of whether fully remote versus hybrid and all of that, but it's just an example of why employees' talent, whether existing employees or, prospective talent, they will force you to change your perspective, even when you think, one way might be the correct way to go about it. Great. So, and then we have, of course, the fantastic example of our very, very, the BMW company, if I may. We discussed why that was that's a bad way to go about it, because you attract then the kind of people who get fascinated with toys, right? Who get fascinated with, some short salary jumps. And Aditya had a very pertinent point on the podcast as well, that, if you're looking to attract the top talent, top engineering talent, for the top engineering talent, the, sign-on bonus itself is, 10 lakhs and upwards. So how would a 2.5, 3 lakhs bike, help you attract them? So you then end up attracting the wrong sort of talent, or maybe that's what they want, who knows? But yeah, what are some of the other things that you should not be doing, Nikunj, when it comes to employer branding?
Yeah, so I think going back to my earlier point, a lot of companies just copy other companies, right? And they look at if we can't compete on salary, let's copy the benefits that other companies are offering, right? So they have 4-day work week, let's copy that. They have unlimited number of leaves, let's copy that. So you just think about more transactional, you think about policies somehow will create employer branding for you, right? So I think understanding that these policies are not the end all be all. These are just the mechanisms to propagate something, to facilitate something, to support people achieve something. So these are the crutches where the employer branding is really standing on its own feet. These are not the employer branding in itself, but people just think and get lost in the policies themselves, and they copy. And I think and the copying continues where you copy everything, right? So you also copy that what other companies believe in. And I think if you're not natural, if it's not original thinking, and you're just copying others, it will never be like Naval Ravikant says, right? Nobody can compete or beat you at being you, right? So it's very important for you to be you and figure out what is your mission and what is your why. And if you do that well, then it will be very easy, right, for you. But if you just copy other companies' why and then you copy it here, then it's a long commitment. As Karthik said, you're just going to start the engine now. Any fakeness, anything which is not originally you, will not be able to survive, because every time you will be facing the questions not from outside but also from inside. and people will be asking you and grilling you that why we're not doing this versus this. And if you don't have a solid reason why you and solid conviction behind it, then you'll not be able to actually do anything about it. So it's very important for you to know what are you doing, why you're doing that, and have that uniquely coming from your own company and your people rather than copying other companies. I think that would be, I think, one advice, one thing I would say people should not do when it comes to employer branding, apart from, of course, being fake.
Yeah, of course. If you're fake, it might last anywhere between 2 to 6 months, but you will be found out. And that is the thing with brand, right? Whether it's employer brand, product brand, company brand. Once a perception has been built, and especially if it's a negative perception, no amount of data, no amount of campaign will be able to change it. Maybe you'll have to spend a lot if that is possible, if you are maybe a bigger company. But for most of the companies, once that negative perception is built, there is no coming out of it.
And it's more like, and the same thing, like when you go back to the analogy of selling a product, right? By promising wrong things, you can acquire customers, but they will soon churn, because they will not find, when they come in, they will realize that your product does not really solve the problem. And similar to that, if you are able to fake it and you're not true to yourself, you'll be able to hire people, but you'll have a very high offer to acceptance ratio, but you'll have very low retention ratio, a very high attrition ratio, right? So then eventually it's even better, even worse, because you are now investing more time in hiring and energy, and you're onboarding them and they're leaving, and hence the whole now it's 5 times more effort that you have spent and more cost that you have spent on that.
Karthik, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think plus one to everything what Nikon just definitely mentioned. But I would like to add two things. One is, I think someone mentioned this in the chat as well. Like, don't force it on employees. They'll start hating you, and everything you think you want to do, they'll actually then be opposing you. So pitch it in a way that they see the value, they understand the why, and they would they want to do it themselves, not just because you're asking them to do it, right? Only then you kind of truly get the authentic feel, and it's easy to do that, right? It doesn't take a lot of effort. You just have to kind of think from the other person's side. And I'm second thing is, I'm not in a big fan of hiring like an employer branding specialist under obviously 250-300 employees, right? I think this is something everyone needs to own, especially in the people ops team, because it's not one person's job, right? When you are a recruiter, you're talking to candidates, that is employer branding, right? How you pitch the company, what is the work life, what will you be doing here, how is the interview process, all of those things are part of employer brand. So it starts from recruiters, starts from the interviewers, goes on to the founder. Every single person in the company is kind of involved, right? So having just one person kind of run it does not really make a lot of sense, unless that person is coming in, say at 500 employees, and setting the process up, and setting this is what we need to do, these are all the things we should be doing, this is how we should be doing, right? That's different. But it just cannot be, oh, we've hired our one person employee branding, HR, and we are all set, right? That is never going to work, right? It's one of those things which you have to understand why you want to do it, and then kind of make sure everyone is is in the loop for that. And yeah, my last thing is just be very, very authentic. No need for fancy videos. I would say don't spend like whatever 1 lakh, 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, how much ever money you spend on making a nice video, and then you're like, oh, this is not giving us any ROI. We're not getting any new applicants. Don't be kind of short-sighted that way and say, just kind of lose faith. This is not working out. Let's move to something else. So it takes a while. Be authentic. Just be very, very transparent, communicative, and then just be patient, right? Like with anything else, like this takes time. It will take 3, 6, 9 months, but you will start seeing the benefits if you're playing a long-term game.
Totally. Like I mentioned, this is a long-term game. This is not something that will get fixed, get started, executed in 1 month, 2 months. Long-term game, both from a time perspective, as well as, how many people need to be involved in it. So literally everyone in the company needs to be involved with it. Cool. Those are all the topics that we wanted to cover. Now we will take questions, and there are a lot of questions, and we have half an hour. Let's see how many we can pick up. Maybe we will have, either of you can pick up the answer, so we don't have the same question being answered by both of you. By the way, great to see Sarang here, the real OG of employer branding, if you will, Sarang Brahme from Capgemini. And I had Sarang, I had the pleasure of having Sarang on our podcast, The Shape of Work. So yeah, I guess, you can also, maybe someone can post the link here, Neha or Shweta, but, highly recommend following Sarang on LinkedIn. And, he always has great experiences and content to share. Like, he's been doing this for what? I mean, as the program manager of employee engagement for 2 years now, but essentially, for about 8 to 9 years now, he's been doing, one or the other aspect of it. So thank you, Sarang. Good to see you here. Now let's go into the questions. Let's see, where are these questions? Great. Salary rules the roost. Would EB differentiation really matter now? Already covered. Let's go to the next one. Karthik, what are the changes that you underwent when going from 25 to 50 to 100? Not sure what the context is here. Is it the context?
I think in terms of employer branding, right?
Got it.
Like,
got it. Yeah, let's
how you
assume
hire.
that and answer it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So 25 to 50 to 100, I think, 25 is when the HR hat is generally by, the founder, right? So every hire is through referrals. Every hire is, people, right? You don't really have a careers page as well, right? Most cases. 50, you start doing a careers page, you may hire your first recruiter. 100 is when you have an HR team, right? And you have a Glassdoor page, you have multiple job postings, paid postings, whatnot. So the difference is, which kind of change from state to state is 50, 25, no need, even for a Glassdoor, you can just set up a basic hygiene Glassdoor, right? Start collecting reviews, but you don't really need to spend too much time on it. 50 is when you need to be very serious. You need to set the tone right, that we want reviews. This is why we need the reviews. This is why it's going to help. 100 is when, it becomes like, if you don't have it, then, it's almost like, dead, right? And other things which come up is, this employee life stories, a day in the life of, an employee. Things like asking for referrals. 100, your referral engine becomes very strong. Now you have 100 people, with each of them having a network of 300 people at least, right? So that's an insane number of people you can reach out by having a story or a referral and things like that. And then you can start doing anonymous surveys at this point, right? 25, 50, you probably know every single person so well that you don't really need to do an anonymous feedback and survey. You can kind of craft the policies according to it, but you can set the vision and the culture, right? But at kind of 100, you want to make sure that you are doing these surveys very frequently to kind of make sure that you're getting the pulse, you're keeping an eye on retention, you're keeping an eye on churn, you understand what companies want, you understand what employees want, and you are actually taking action on their feedback. So that's very important. It kind of when you go beyond 100.
Yeah. Great. Nikunj, you can pick this up. How can we retain candidates? And the most the most frequent questions that maybe HRTA people at this point are struggling with. How can we retain candidates even after matching salary? They are taking offers and going to another company and they go on. How can we stop that, especially in technical or IT candidates?
Yeah, so I think if you have been listening, that's what we have been talking about. It's not easy.
Maybe this person is asking for a short-term, solution. Yeah. I don't think, is there a short-term solution, Nikunj?
There is. So I think a lot of times the hiring process itself is structured in a way where your differentiation doesn't really come out, right? You start the game at a very, on a very defensive note. You think you don't have something to fight and you still fight and you want to be lucky, right? And it never happens, right? You never get lucky in life, right? So I think you have to go and play the game and choose the game. First of all, you have to remember that, right? Which game you're playing, and you have to define the rules of the game. So for example, right? If you are posting job anywhere and getting everyone, all the applications are coming in, you're looking at only the skills. You're not looking at any of the things that are going to matter in terms of the person joining you. And I think we've discussed the concept of who is the ideal employee, right? What value proposition you're offering, and who are the people you expect them to, who are the people who you expect to join over people who are not going to join. Do you have understanding of that? And can you focus on those people first, attract first of all those people to your funnel, and then once they've entered the funnel, how do you identify them? Because your funnel, as Karthik is saying, you're 200 people entering every day. How do you spot those 25 who are actually the ones who are right people, who are more likely to convert. They also are competent, but they're also more likely to convert. The problem is people never able to identify that. And then you are just spreading your thin slice of time over a lot of people. And hence you're not able to really spend quality time with them. And you're not able to really impress them, show them around, give them a very clear picture of what your company is all about. So I think it's a very shallow hiring process because of the inability to attract the right talent and identify the right talent when they enters the process. And then you spend up time, and then you at the end of the day you think you will win them by convincing them about your company, but by the time it's too late, right? By the time you reach the offer stage, the person already has talked to 4 or 5 other companies, and they have already impressed the person by whatever they are doing, right? So it's too late for you to play the game now. And they think by culture round in the founder game, in the founder round or something, right, the founder will be able to convince the person to join. But that's too late, right? The whole process, if you had defined the process, and that's where cut short comes into picture. I was talking to you about that. We not only focus as a product, as a platform, on getting the right people, but also enabling the people, the recruiters, to spot those talent who are going to be a better fit, who are going to join. And then because you're automating stuff and with the algorithms, you're only able to focus spend a quality amount of time with only a few people that you're going to be nurturing. And there you can spend a lot of time. You can do a group call with them. You can do just one call with them where they get to interview you. You don't interview them at all. And this is called reverse interviews, right? Where your team comes into picture. Let's say your tech team comes into one frame, and the other person is just asking the question that how does it like, how it feels to spend time on this problem. What is a complex problem you solved? And let them have it, because right now our hiring process is fine that we are going to grill them, and in the end we will decide whether we want to hire. And then now the ball is in your court. But that's not interview, that's not hiring process, right? So I think a lot of things about very relevant to what we do here. But the short answer is, play the game, choose the right people, attract the right people, identify them very early, and spend quality time with them, where you can identify and you can showcase your employer value proposition to them. And if you are able to do that, your offers will be fewer, but they will be better, more likely to get accepted by the people.
Fantastic answer. I think just the fact that you have this perspective of having worked with so many tech companies, that definitely helped with the answer. By the way, on the point of reverse interview, now that you brought it up, we just released a podcast with Muralidharan, co-founder of Wingman, who has literally spoken about this in the podcast throughout. So if you search for, or maybe someone can post the link here. Karthik, you will take up the next question. What are some of the steps others have taken to improve employer branding when you are not VC funded? I think we already covered this. This was the third point that we picked up. What is the difference between branding a smaller brand and already established brand? How to sustain with a smaller brand, especially in service industry?
Yeah, I think if Sarang is here, would be nice if he can take this question up. Right? He's
Sarang,
probably...
okay. Let us put Sarang on the spot. Sarang, are you able to? I mean, even without the video is perfectly fine. If you're still here, we would love to have your thoughts on this. Let me know. And
okay, Abash, can
yes,
you hear
perfect.
me?
Yes, we can all hear you, Sarang. Please.
Oh my God. Okay, you put me on the spot. Can you sorry, repeat the question again?
Sure. So the question is, what is the difference between branding a smaller brand? And I guess, Capgemini was never that small of a brand, even when you joined. But I think the question is, what is the difference between, when you're smaller versus now, if you are, a very, very big brand? How do you sustain that?
And also the service company, aspect, right? Given, with the services and a product, company difference, Sarang.
Yeah, I think on that, what I've observed is, obviously your hiring requirements and the kind of people that you hire for product and services are different. In service, you hire more broader skilled people because you're doing literally consulting across different technologies, versus product, you are very, very targeted in terms of hiring. So I think the product companies, basically they showcase, even if it is a smaller company, I think for them the product is also always the hero, because that's the big opportunity that they bring onto the table of you're going to work and build an impact for bringing that product right from zero to something that it will become very big. So I think that can play a role. And if you're a small company, again, I think there's a perception that you need to spend a lot of time, money on that. But no, I think you guys have already spoken, right? First, start with your employees, understand the culture, give them a voice, and also build a story. I think a lot of companies have a great story about their product, about their startup, but they don't translate it into what does this mean for candidates and employees. Yes, you have the greatest product on the earth, but what does that mean for employees? Does that mean they are going to have growth? They're going to learn a lot of things. They will have amazing experiences. They will have collaboration, opportunity to grow. So that's where the EVP, and again, whether it's an EVP or not, but building some kind of story is important. And whether you spend, then it's a question of the budget. If it's a bigger company, you will have bigger branding campaigns. If not, you use the employee voice, the founder's voice. And even in the corporate marketing that we do, is there a way to plug in the employer branding so you don't have to do these two separate things? I think, as you mentioned, Abash, if you're doing a PR campaign for the product and the startup, is there a way by the way, we are hiring, and go to our career page. So simple things can be done. I don't think it needs a big bang things always.
Great answer, Sarang, and thanks. Apologies for putting you on the spot, but of course.
No problem. It's a great conversation. So keep on that.
Thank you. I think one small thing that I noticed when Freshworks rolled out a newspaper ad in 2019 or 2018, and it was a very small thing, but that was very that's something that stays in my mind. They had of course taken out a full page ad about this was pre-IPO, so I think they were building towards that. But one sentence they said, we are thankful to our employees, customers, and investors. Now, this was a very small thing, but it showed to me that that is an employee-first company. You would think that when you're taking out a newspaper ad, you would probably start with customers, right? But it was a very subtle nuance. But that was like an employee first company. So that is just something that came to mind. But I think,
and I think to add to that point, actually, is a great idea, because even customers, right, they love companies that value their employees.
Correct.
Right. Because you believe if somebody's working with the best effort, they will create the best product out there. And that's why whenever you go to even a local juice bar, right, and they put the stories of the employees at employee of the month, and there are restaurants who actually put the names on the t-shirts of the employees, and that creates for the customer also, it creates a warm feeling that they care for the employees, hence they'll care for customers as well, and the product and service will be top class. And it works very vice versa. So as Sarang mentioned, we don't have to look at it, these two marketing, like the product marketing and the employer branding, as two different things. They're actually very, very tightly linked to each other, and they actually synergize each other, and they play into each other, and they can make each other very powerful in that way.
100%. Next one, Karthik, you should take this, because I think it came across during the conversation that transparency is something which is huge at Springworks, like literally everything, right? So Bhavya is asking, where do we draw the line when it comes to being transparent with the employees? And this is a fair question. Many a times, for example, we just took out non-competes from all our employment contracts. Works for us, fine. But there might be some companies where they are really working on very intellectual property sort of a thing, which is, let's be honest, maybe 2 companies within the attendees here have that problem, right? Like, that is how we look at it. But going back to the question, where do you draw the line when it comes to being transparent? Like, what do you tell the employees versus what do you maybe don't?
Yeah, so I think the extreme is, a company like Buffer, right, which would have salaries also completely transparent, right? So every single person knows how much everyone else is earning. So I think that's kind of the extreme. So you have to kind of draw your own line. We do it. We say all policies which kind of affect employees, right from we were thinking of this trip to Goa, and offsite, right? Where do we stay, right? This is the budget we have. If we stay in a 4-star, that means, or we stay in a 5-star, that means we have to downgrade our cruise budget, right? For example, right? Or if you take this fancy cruise with unlimited alcohol, that means this other event gets scanned off, right? Small things like that. I think being very transparent in those things helps, and people are also seeing that, okay, this is Now we are taking a decision collectively. It's as democratic as possible. It's not top down. It's kind of bottom up in that sense. And then salaries is again something you could kind of draw a line there. Policies like should we how many should we have a no meeting day, right? Should we do 4-day work week? Should we have what should be our referral bonus, right? Should we do something special to kind of improve our gender diversity ratio, right? These type of things are kind of are very important, and you can be very transparent for any of these things. So I think most employee policies can be actually very, very transparent. Internal transfers, right? Recently it came up in our company. In the sales team, I want to move to the marketing team, right? How does it work? Why am I being discouraged, or why am I being encouraged, right? So small things like that, I think you can be very kind of transparent for most things. Employee policies kind of related, maybe not so much on the compensation aspect, right? But I like to be transparent even around kind of revenue. Where are we getting our customers from? What are our customers saying? Reviews we're getting from customers, right? Sometimes negative feedback. Weeks where we had a dip, right? Why did we have that dip? Explaining that is also very important, right? And people said that during the pandemic as well, right? Where a lot of companies were hit because of the uncertainty across the world. Be transparent. Some even went above and board and said, we have 6 months of runway and this is what it is, right? So you'll kind of be very everyone knows that you are doing the right thing, unlike someone else who like everything is fine, and one fine day you see an email or you get a message that 20-25% of the company is being laid off, right? That just, it's the worst possible thing you can ever do, right? I think just be as transparent, and people are here to help, right? Employees are also kind of working with you. They're all sometimes you will actually see people go above and beyond to say, yes, the company is facing a hard time, let me actually step in, let me help, and they'll come in to help for recruiting, help in product and whatnot.
Great. So yeah, we'll take a couple more questions, but before that, I wanted to announce that, of course, I guess everyone is seeing the things that we are doing on Twitter and LinkedIn. We will have breakout rooms. So if few people want to, stay back after 1:30, by the way, we will close the conversation, webinar, recording, live stream, everything at 1:30 itself, but we will keep the breakout rooms open so that, if you want to interact with the other attendees, maybe, I'm not sure about Nikunj and Karthik, but I will stay back, some few people from Springworks Cut Short as well. You can, or, you want to just mingle with the other attendees, we will open up the breakout room in another 5 minutes or so. Last two questions. Nikunj, I think without naming the brand, does best place to work accreditation help in employer branding? What are your thoughts on that?
I think Karthik would be able to tell this better.
Great, Karthik. Yeah.
Sure. So I personally think it's a gimmick. It costs a bunch of money, and all you get is a badge, and right now it's not useful, right? It's just one of those things where the people of Steam or the HR wants to do it, and they want to look good for their kind of superiors and overall. But any kind of decent candidate is able to see through that, right? You get a great place to work, and then you go on Glassdoor and see the reality, right? Like, does not match. As simple as that, right? Like, it's almost like Zomato has rated you 4.8, and you will see all of these reviews are bad food, stale food, uncooked and things like that, right? Doesn't work. So instead of spending all that money on all that time, because it's not easy, right? You have to send, you have to do this survey, that survey, stuff like that, which you should just do it on your own, right? Some of their questions and surveys are actually good from a content perspective, and that they kind of help you understand and learn, okay, what is wrong, what can be improved, where are we going wrong, and things like that. So that is, I think, good, and which you can get on the internet as well.
Nikunj, do you think offering ESOPs help in getting good people on board overall with employer branding?
Yeah, so as I said, right, the value proposition and the comp, right? So now you, in terms of a comp, let's say you're offering a value prop, and now in terms of a comp, you have two components. One is salary, and one of course is ESOPs. Now, I think there was a time, and I'm talking about 2004, 2005, very early stages, very early days of startups in India. Very few successes at that time. Even Flipkart was not there. I remember I was working in a startup, and at that time we were offered ESOPs of a US company, and previously the founders of the company had sold a company for $400 million at that time, right? So when we came in and we were giving stock options, it was a ticket to us to riches, right? We realized that okay, we will also make it big because founders had sold the previous company. So from that point on, then there was a lot of sort of distrust on the ESOPs, because I think in general ESOPs don't work for a lot of companies, for a lot of employees, because the startup itself doesn't work very well, right? The startups don't really take off, and out of the startup that take off, they take so much of funding that by time the actually time comes to make money for employees, it doesn't really convert to anything. So I think there was a lot of distrust, because of which I see when we offer ESOPs or when we ask candidates about ESOPs, they think that ESOPs are not valued much. And even if you search on Google, should I take stock options or cash, you will find most of the people will prescribe and recommend that no, try to get more cash, because cash will help you today. Cash will give you more salary increases upfront rather than depending on ESOPs. But I think I think fortunately there have been some success stories where in last 2 or 3 years, companies have taken ESOPs very seriously. And Meesho is example of that, for example, right? Now they can give you against ESOPs, you can take cash, right? And they don't wait for a liquidity event. Liquidity event doesn't have to be there. They can buy your ESOPs or give you a buyback from their own money, right? So it's a great way for companies to boost the confidence of the employees. I think it's really about it's really on the company's part to establish trust and make this more credible. Right now, if you don't do that, if you just offer stock options as one more company offering it, it will be devalued. So you have to really stand out and say why your ESOPs matter so much. In our case, for example, we have tried to make sure that ESOPs, we do buybacks in a way that makes people give some exit whenever they need something. So we try to highlight those stories. So we have to also try to tell them why the valuation is real. It's not an inflated valuation on which a VC money or VC company works, right? That's a very ballooned kind of a valuation. We work on a very realistic revenue-driven valuation. So we tell them that we are valued so much reasonably and realistically because we have X number of revenue, and that's the real price of the share. And plus we have the full intent of giving you the cash when you need, and hence we have already given it for 2 or 3 people. You can look at them, talk to them. There's some real stories there. So you have to, if you can make it more credible, if you can make it more realistic, then it will make more sense for people to accept the story. But if you don't back it up, and if you just say we also offer stock options, then you will typically get a response from the candidates that, add 2 lakhs more, 2 LPA more to my salary, I don't want ESOPs.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I think, at least in the past 2 years with ESOP buybacks, I think before that, most people were going for cash upfront, right? But I think trend is changing a little bit. You see, a number of companies, by the way, which is very small number still, but you see at least 20-25 companies doing ESOP buybacks. And the thing is, when the bigger unicorns do it, everyone else has to follow, right? So that's also a good trend in the sense that because other unicorns will have to follow, and then enough number of unicorns do it, then the other companies who don't have maybe that much of funding, they also will have to follow that. Cool. I think we will take one last question. Before that, a few announcements. People who have already tagged us on LinkedIn and Twitter whenever they have posted. So there are a couple of things we are doing. The surprise, some people are asking, what is the surprise gift? So that will still be a surprise. We will reach out to you. But yeah, one thing that we had promised is, 3 people get a half an hour one-on-one with Karthik. And Nikunj, from your side also, was that, not trying to put you on a spot here, but...
No, I think we will send the offer to them on email. So
perfect.
They can always reply.
We can do it on email, definitely. We will of course let you know if it is for a LinkedIn or a Twitter post. We will of course comment on your post that hey, you are the one who has been selected. By the way, we will send the recording of this within the next 3 to 4 hours, because this is being live streamed, so I don't have to upload anything, thankfully. And the breakout rooms will be open as soon as we close, which is at 1:30. So I can see, wow, That is amazing. Even at this point, we have 150 people who have stayed back. That is just amazing. That is 60% retention, which says a lot about the content that was discussed today. Okay, I guess we can close now. I think there is no point in let people leave. People, if you don't want to stay back for the breakout rooms, we will be opening up 10 breakout rooms. You can feel free to join. I am giving the option of let participants choose room. So you can go into any room and start the conversation. There are 10 breakout rooms. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming for this session on employer branding. I hope many of you were able to take away some actionable insights, which you can apply maybe today. Why wait for tomorrow, right? You can maybe start applying it today. Like I said, we will reach out to you over email. All the recording will be shared with every single person who had registered, irrespective of whether you attended or not. And we will also, mention the names of the people who have won our surprise gifts there itself, right? Thanks a lot, Karthik. Thanks. Yes, Nikunj, you had something to add?
Is there a final message you want to give to everyone, Karthik? People who came here for the webinar?
Yeah, just checking if I'm so final message is actually be patient. It takes time. Don't expect results in the first month, first kind of quarter, right? So be patient. Don't kind of give up. And I think whatever you're doing with authenticity is going to work out, right? Even if it's not mentioned in this webinar.
Okay, so
Nikunj,
message from my side is that first of all, believe in it. It's gonna work. A lot of people start with a place of distrust that it will not work. But if you start believe that you can make it work, it's like I as I said again, it's like selling a product in the market. You can always charge lowest price, and you think price is the only differentiator, but it is not. Same thing, salary is not the only differentiator. Believe in it. It's great today that you are being forced to innovate on that, because by innovating on this and by competing, only you will be able to understand your company very well. So take it as an opportunity, not as a threat, that today you are being forced to do it. It's possible. It will make you do wonderful things in terms of understanding your company, your culture, your people better, and use that opportunity to create, as Karthik said, move 1 inch at a time, and don't make it a very big exercise in terms of dollars, in terms of, I don't have resources, I don't have money. All you need is a very minimal thing. And if you have the right belief, if you understand the pulse of the people, the kind of things you want to do, you'll be able to do it. So that will be my parting message.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Karthik. Thanks a lot, Nikunj, for all your experiences, perspectives, tips. We will open the breakout rooms right away. By the way, you will receive a feedback email from the platform that we are using, Luma. Please do give us feedback. That helps us a lot. And in the email, we will also ask you, what is the next topic that you would like us to talk about, and we will share it with, of course, with Springworks as well as CutShort team, and they, depending on how relevant it is for our audiences, we can pick it up as the topic for the next webinar. So please do give us that feedback. Thanks a lot. I will close the recording now and open up the breakout rooms.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Abhash. Thanks, Karthik.
Thank you.
Cool. So the breakout rooms are in progress. I can see people are already joining it. There are 10 rooms.
You are still live on YouTube.